this is my setup for the Sony FX6 on the RS3 Pro. It is possible to balance this camera with an extended battery on an RS3 Pro. It's through a ring setup, but it still works. And it's awesome. So this build that I'm showing you guys today is gonna be the build that I use currently for this camera. You can apply this build to any other camera, like any other Sony camera, Canon camera, Nikon camera. The only thing that's gonna be different is how you balance the camera on a gimbal. I assume if you're watching this video, you already know how to balance a gimbal. And if you don't, there's hundreds of videos on YouTube that explains how to balance a gimbal with various setups. When I was doing weddings, I really enjoyed the handheld aspect of filmmaking. Just something organic and also very quick. And the biggest thing I care about a lot is stabilization, because when you're doing handheld, it's not stable unless you're doing like very subtle movements. And the FX6 has a really cool feature where it can record the metadata, which allows it to be stabilized in post through a software called Sony Catalyst Browse, which is a free software, and it's fantastic. I wanted to eliminate the stabilization in real time, because even if I am going to use Sony Catalyst Browse, it does save me a step if the footage is already stable enough. I don't have to use that. But it is nice to have it on this camera. But then it's like, this is even really heavier. When I have this fully rigged up, it's around 18 pounds, and that's where the hook vest comes in. So it eliminates the heaviness, this eliminates the shakiness, and I can still use my FX6 in all its glory, despite the fact that when you remove the top handle, you lose all audio. You have scratch audio, which is nice, but it's not very usable. You lose all audio, and that could have been solved if Sony just put a 3.5mm jack or an XLR port on the body, which I really hope they do in the next version, because this is such a headache to get around. How I solve this problem is I'm actually going to be using a device by Deity called the TC1, and it generates its own timecode because the FX6 supports timecode. That way I can sync up all the audio and all the visuals together like that, because they're all running on the same exact time code. So the first thing is you need a gimbal, and I currently use the DJI RS3 Pro. This gimbal was actually designed to hold heavy cameras like the FX6. I'm pretty sure they said that in the marketing. So RS3 Pro, you can use this on the RS2, RS3, like I said previously. But I use this one because I think it's the best gimbal I've ever used. It locks itself, it lasts forever, and it can support my FX6 comfortably. And it's not big and obnoxiously huge like the Zhiyun Crane 3S or the Crane 3. So what I would do with this one is there's going to be a little section down here. I have the LCD facing towards me, so when I'm using it, it's easy to control the gimbal. You can have it any way you want. You can also even hook this into an underslug mode, which I've done before, but I honestly just prefer the regular setup. So make sure you have the ring facing the correct direction. I actually had this ring facing this way, and I couldn't get it on because it was backwards. So obviously make sure that, what I like to do is you want to have the frontal port facing forward. So this is the Digitalfoto ring. It's around $300, $400. It's pretty great. I like it a lot. That is the ring that I'm using. But again, this can apply to any ring, like a Tilta, like a SmallRig. But for this example, I'm using a Digitalfoto ring. So the gimbal's on tight. One thing I like to do just in case to make sure everything is tightened, because the last thing I want is filming and something happens. This has never happened, but you know, just in case, somehow, I don't know, if I put this shit, somehow the fucking gimbal becomes dislodged and it slips out of its socket. I think that would only happen if you had it in underslug mode. So just in case that ever happens and you just don't want to worry about it, this ring comes with a special locking mechanism from the gimbal to the ring itself. It's just extra protection, just an extra way for this thing to not fall off. I've never had it do that, but peace of mind goes a long way. You need an Allen key. The only thing I don't like about filmmaking sometimes, at least with this current setup that I have, is that I have so many Allen keys. I wish everything just kind of used the same Allen key. It would have been so much easier, but I guess, I don't know. Can't really do much about that. But, you know, it's good to have multiple Allen keys for different Allen holes. Okay, so we got the gimbal on the ring. It's extra locked, so it's like super secure just in case. The next thing I like to do, I mean, again, you could do this any way you want. There's no real way to set up a ring. I actually am going to be powering everything off of a V-mount minus the camera. This is a 190 V-mount battery. This is going to power the monitor. This is also going to power the gimbal itself. So I guess we can maybe move on to that right away. So I like to have stuff on the inside of the ring because I feel like if there's stuff on the outside, at least heavy stuff, it's a lot easier to tip over when I put it down. So just for safety reasons, I am going to put my V-mount inside of the ring. So this comes with the Digitalfoto ring. It's a clamp with a V-mount attachment. And then all you got to do is just, I forget which way it goes. Oh yeah, it goes this. So for me, I'm going to put it this way. That way the V-mount battery is facing, or that way that the little triangle hook is facing down. Now I'm going to try to bring this as close as I can to the bottom, which I believe it's at the bottom, just because when I'm on the gimbal here, I don't want it to like knock into it, because sometimes if your V-mount's too high, it's going to knock into your gimbal, which is going to disrupt how much wiggle room you have on the gimbal. All right, so that's the V-mount right there. I think it makes sense to actually now attach the camera to the plate. So originally, you could only, I thought you could only use the RS3 Pro with the FX6 if you had the small battery that it came with. Which does work, but now if you get an extension plate, this is through SmallRig. Everything I use, by the way, will be in the description of the video. There's a lot of stuff. So this is the SmallRig extension plate. And what this lets me do is it lets me get the camera back further and has a flat plane, which supports more stability. And then I can put the extended battery like this one onto the camera without it hitting the back motor. And I would power everything through a V-mount, but because it's on a gimbal that's moving and it's going to disrupt the stabilization if a wire is too heavy, I have this battery on it separate from everything else. That way the monitor and the gimbal last a lot longer than powering a camera. Plus this battery goes for hours. I think I did an entire wedding on one battery for like 5 to 6 hours straight, and this battery wouldn't die. Very expensive battery. It's a Sony battery, but it's fucking awesome. So if you can afford it, 100% go for it. So I'm going to take this right now and I'm going to put the extension plate on the camera. One thing I love about this plate is it has 2 screws, and the FX6 provides 2 screws on the bottom, a 3/8 screw and a 1/4 inch screw. And this just allows the plate to not slide as easily as it would if it had 1 screw compared to 2. So I'm going to put this on. It is a little bit tedious to put on because you have to make sure that both screws are lined up perfectly to the device. Base plate has been screwed, and now I am going to put the extended battery in the back. Previously, I thought this setup was impossible, but like I said, the extension plate lets this happen, and it blows my mind. So I'm going to, actually, before I put this on, I'm going to put a lens on it. So since it's on a gimbal, if you have a prime lens, that's great. It's not going to move. You're perfect. This is a zoom lens. This is the Sony 24-70 G Master Mark II version. When I'm doing weddings, it's great to go from a wide angle to a zoom angle. This lens is amazing. It's amazing in low light. It's just incredible. I love it so much. And if I could just have one lens all day on this camera, which I've done plenty of times, at the moment for me, it's this lens. I love it. My only complaint is I wish it was a little bit longer focal length, like maybe the 105. I know they have a lens for that, but I love that 2.8 aperture, and I love G Master lenses. Love them. So I will gladly sacrifice that extra zoom for this lens because this lens is incredible. If you can afford it, I highly recommend it. Like if you're in the Sony ecosystem, this lens is fucking amazing. Maybe I'll make a video on it later. So here's the setup. We have this camera with the lens. It's kind of heavy already, but the RS3 Pro can handle it. It's fucking crazy. I love it. So I'm going to slide this onto the gimbal. And now, just like with any gimbal, you have to balance it. So I'm gonna balance it to the best of my ability. The only thing about this is that sometimes you have to slide the camera all the way to the back, and then your little screw on the side of the gimbal that lets you move the track up and down, it's not gonna work because you're so far back, but as long as you push it forward, it'll still adjust, and then eventually it'll catch the thread of this little screw and you'll be able to do it again. But because this is such a heavy setup, it's not really recommended to use the knob. So as you see, I'm just using my actual hands to move it. It's stable, it's not moving, so I'm going to tighten it. As you also use this setup, yeah, see, as I tighten it, it's obviously moving. What I've found is that I'm not gonna get this perfectly balanced on every axis, no matter what I do. So I try to get as close as I can, and I feel like the calibration of this gimbal, and with a little bit of wiggle room where everything is almost perfectly balanced, I think that's enough for the gimbal to do the rest of the work to make sure everything else is balanced. So this axis, while it's not 100% balanced, as long as each one is almost there, because you can see it's pretty close, it'll be fine. So this axis is good. I'm gonna lock it just in case, because I don't want the shit to move around. I'm not going to adjust the horizontal axis. And this is too much. If the gimbal's going like this, I feel like that's way too much on balance. But it's not bad, because as you drop it, it's only slowly moving down. So I'm going to adjust the back right now. And it's gonna be like minor adjustments. Like you see my arm shaking because I'm trying to make sure I adjust it where it's barely like moving. So this is actually pretty good. If I do this, that's a little bit fast, which does kind of suck. Like I said, it's not going to be perfect, but on this side, it's perfect. So that's the only thing that's weird about this camera, is that the body is just a little awkward. I love the FX6, but it's just a little awkward of a body. I'm going to rebalance this again later on because I'm not done. I still have a lot left to balance. So the Z-axis, what I do with the Z-axis is I like to lock both this axis, the top and the bottom, I guess X and Y, and then the Z-axis, I like to just take this and I will literally turn it sideways. And if it goes down, it's obviously not balanced. If it's not moving, it's balanced. That way, the camera doesn't flail and it doesn't like hit anything. I think that's just the safest way in my opinion. I always forget which way to adjust for the Z-axis. So yeah, you can see it went up, or it went kind of up. So it's not actually too bad. Let me just double check again. Yeah, so I think it's a little bit too much. I went too far. I'm gonna go a smidge it back. And like, I'm barely adjusting it. And now it's like pretty much perfect. So I think that's pretty good. And for the most part, I think the X and Y are gonna be the most volatile. The the Z-axis doesn't really adjust that much. I think what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go with the monitor. So I use a Atomos Ninja 5. I have the SSD. I only bought the SSD because I had to upgrade it to control fan noise. Love this thing. It's great. Highly recommend it. Not much else to be said about the Ninja 5. Any monitor though will work. So since I'm powering this off of a V-mount battery, I'm going to be using this separate cable that didn't come with it. I don't think it came with it. Hook it up in the back, and now it's going to be to D-tap. There is only one D-tap though on this V-mount, so I actually bought an extension D-tap, which is a D-tap to a 4 output D-tap. So we can actually hook that up right now. So we got this going into here. And now, since this is a ring, the cool thing about a ring is that you can actually wrap stuff around it. So it looks a little messy, but it's a great way for you to just kind of get what you want. So like, that's obviously not perfect, but I guess nothing is. I use this clamp, and before I didn't like it, to hold the extension in place. And I feel like that moves too much. So actually what I ended up doing was I actually used gaff tape to kind of grip everything together, which may not be the smartest thing, but this setup is very customizable. You could honestly set this up any way you honestly want it to set up. So now I'm gonna hook up the monitor, And I love this Magic Arm. It's big and bulky. I actually use a clamp to hook up this arm, and it's a 1/4 inch on the bottom, but on the top is 3/8 because the actual port off of the Ninja 5 is a 3/8 up and down. It does come with an adapter that makes it 1/4 inch, but every time I attached the Magic Arm to that, like the inside thread would always come out. Really annoying because you have to take like pliers to take it off of the actual Magic Arm, but this is built into the actual device, which never moves. So I prefer that, so I honestly just take a 3/8 and I just use that. It's also a lot more stable, more sturdier, and it's pretty awesome. And it's huge, like it supports a good amount of weight. Like I said, everything I use in this video will be linked below. I got this from Amazon. I couldn't find this at all from like B&H. So Amazon actually sometimes have some pretty clutch items. Use a clamp, regular clamp. I think this is like a SmallRig clamp. Any clamp is fine as long as it has threads on it so you can attach stuff to it. But yeah, like I said, this ring is very customizable. This is how I'm going to be essentially piecing everything together just by guessing. Like a lot of this was also trial and error. So I have this clamped here. I'll probably go a little bit more this way. That way it's actually stable and it's not slanted. Cool thing about a Magic Arm, you can move it around and do stuff like that. That way, the more that's lowered, the more that it's like around the ring and not like up and about, the more stable the ring will be. This is a bit obnoxious, but like I said, I'm going to be kind of going around like this, tying it, and now I'm going to hook this up to the first D-tap extension, which, oh, yeah, I got to make sure I'm actually doing this correctly, but yeah, there we go. So that's there. It's also not moving that much because now there's stuff to it, but if I need to move it to have some more wiggle room, I can, but that's that. I'm not a big fan of cords, but this is like the one for the Ninja. I don't know if there's another one for the Ninja. There might be. B&H has so many options, but like I said, anything I use, you can change it up. This is just a basic overview. So that's cool. We got our monitor. How are we going to hook up the monitor? I have this thing by Zilur, Z-I-L-R. They're amazing HDMI, very loose HDMI, very flimsy, which is great because on a gimbal, you don't want stuff to be holding it down. You want it to move freely. So this is I think it's like almost like a 3-foot, if not 3-foot cable. It's long. I like long cables. Not too long, but long enough. That way there's no tension between the monitor and the gimbal. So I'm going to plug this into the HDMI in on the Ninja. And then what I like to do is, honestly, I'm just going to wrap this around the ring. Wrap it around maybe like once. That way it's not too much of a bother. You still want enough room. And then I'll go into the HDMI slot on my FX6 and I'll plug it in. Let me just lock this. So that's good. And one thing I like to do is every time I attach stuff to the ring, I like to test it. And you can see that there is no tension at all with the cable at all. So that's good. So that's hooked up. Everything's fine. Now I want to look at this thing. So this is the monitor that came with the Sony FX6 that lets you touch and focus. You can't, from my knowledge, do that on an external monitor. If you can, then let me know. But yeah, just like the monitor, I'm going to mount this on another clamp. And this is a 1/4 inch thread on the bottom of this Sony FX6 monitor. So I'm going to hook it up to a 1/4 inch thread. And now I'm going to attach this over here. And I'm going on this side because the port of the FX6 for the monitor is here. I did try it on this side, but there was a lot of tension when I went to turn it a different direction. So I like to have the monitor personally where the port is on the camera. So I'm going to put this here. Tighten it on the ring. Okay, we have it tight, and now the cable is literally just going to go right into the camera, just like that. So now when I move it, there is zero tension, which is what we want. This is not really a concern. It's never going to be in front of the camera, but sometimes the cable is literally like over here dangling. It just kind of depends on how loose it is. Wear and tear really does matter as well. So we got the monitor for our focusing. I also like to take this off. That way there's no restrictions at all. Or this is gonna get in my way when I'm doing stuff. If I need to record right away, I can. All right, so now we have a couple more setups. We have this cable, which comes with the ring. This is a D-Tap 2. I totally forget what this is called. I'll put it on the screen, but this is gonna power the gimbal. Then this goes into the extension cable through to the V-mount. Like I said, everything's mostly powered off the V-mount minus the camera. So I'm gonna plug this into the bottom of the ring. If you guys get this exact ring, you'll know where it is. But there's a port down here that powers the gimbal, and you just gotta plug it in. So it's plugged in, and then just like this cable, I like to wrap this around the gimbal ring or the advanced ring. So let me just do that here. Wrap it around the bottom. And usually I'll make this a lot more constricted. But because this is a YouTube video, I'm just gonna go a little bit faster than I normally do. So now we have that hooked up. All right, so for the last part, we're gonna hook up Timecode Deity TC1 to the camera, because when you take top panel off FX6, there is no audio, and that's a nightmare when you're doing visuals, especially for weddings. So I have this little adapter. It's a Horseshoe adapter that lets you attach it to a 1/4 inch. The FX6 has multiple 1/4 inch all over it. So I'm gonna take this little slab and I'm going to hook it up to the actual device, camera itself. Once again, we need another Allen wrench to get this in. So yeah, we're in there. And again, this is also very small, so it's not gonna take up too much weight when it's on the camera itself. So I'm gonna take this, and now I'm gonna slide this in to the actual device. So now it's in, and then you just lock it. Boom. And now there is a port on the FX6 where you can hook up Timecode to it. And then I'm just gonna put this wire in, lock it. It's locked in, tighten it, we're good. Timecode is good. Timecode is inside the camera. Cool, everything's good. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn on the TC1. Oh yeah, hold it, turn it on. But this essentially is the setup. We have the 2 monitors, V-mounts powered, being the monitor, as well as the gimbal. So let me just make sure that timecode on my FX6 is running accordingly. I can confirm that the timecode on this is currently 36 seconds, and it's the same exact thing on the camera, because I've already hooked this up for it to work. Since I'm using a zoom lens, you typically want to balance the rig at the middle focal length. So 70 to 24, around the middle is around 50 millimeters. So you want to balance it based on that, because there are times I'll go to 24 or I'll go to 70, and that obviously disrupts the focusing. But because I balanced it in, disrupts the balance, like the balancing, it disrupts the balancing. But if I go in the middle, it's not too bad, because you can be a little bit off and it will still be balanced. It's one thing if it's completely unbalanced and completely off, then that's a problem. So when I balanced it at 24. I should have balanced it at 50. So obviously when I unhook this axis, it's gonna be, wow, it's totally fine. Okay, maybe I didn't do that. I'm an idiot. Yo, it's totally fucking balanced. All right, well, just make sure you do that. Wow, I have ADD, so I forget quite a bit. Let me just make sure that with everything hooked onto it, if the Z-axis is good, then we're good. Yeah, it's not bad. So this is proof that an FX6 can balance on an RS3 Pro with an extended battery. Like you'll see right here on the side, if you can see, here's the extended battery plate. And if I move it back, it doesn't hit the back. It doesn't hit it. That, for me, that is huge that it doesn't hit the back. That is crazy. I love that. The wires can hit the back, that's fine, but it's not going to disrupt the balancing. Anyway, turn this back on. I'm going to recalibrate it just in case. So I use this for weddings. I love it. It's amazing. It's fantastic. The gimbal's great. I put it into sports mode if I want to go even faster when I'm moving it. It's awesome. I'm going to have this on my hook vest in a moment to show you the final setup. So the gimbal has been calibrated, which is great. And now, just for demonstration purposes, when I pick this up on an FX6, you'll see it's completely balanced. There is no problem. And even if I want to put it into like pan follow mode, or pan follow, now you'll see that it's locked on this axis, which is great. And nothing is getting in the way of this setup. And then just to show you like the actual control with the joystick, like I'm going, like you can see the gimbal's fine. There is no problem. There is no tension. It's totally great. And now if I want to like, say I want to go into like 70 millimeters, now it's unbalanced because I changed the focal length. But you can still see, because we balanced it pretty much perfectly at 50, it's still able to move even though it's technically not balanced anymore. But it's such a minor adjustment in weight that it doesn't matter. The same thing matters is if I go to 24 millimeters, again, it's not balanced anymore, but it's not shaking at all because I balanced it perfectly, or as close to perfect as I could, at the middle focal length. But yeah, let's go back to 50. You can put a follow focus on this that way, because like if you adjust it with your hand, it's going to be obviously not balanced or stable. So that could be an improvement that you want to work on. I like having the monitor here because now I can use the touchscreen and I can have it focus on different things in the background, which is cool. That's great. Again, I can't really do that on my monitor. I have to use the Sony monitor. And then I obviously have a bigger monitor if I want to see how everything looks like as I am filming with my hook vest. So this is an 18-pound setup, 18 pounds. Not too bad, but within like 10 minutes, I'll get tired holding this. So what I do is I hook it up to a hook vest or an easy rig, which takes the weight off of my arms, and I'm going to show you guys that now. All right, I'm back. This is the hook vest, also by Digitalfoto. This supports 17 to 39 pounds. I do like this. There are some cons to it, but for $900 for this type of setup, when easy rigs that support this weight are like $5 grand, this is a steal. But yeah, I might make a video on this as well, as like benefits of a hook vest and why I love using a hook vest and why I don't really need a serene arm. But anyway, here's the hook vest. I have a low ceiling, but you want to put this on like a backpack. I'm making it a little bit awkward. Trust me, it's not this awkward in person. I'm just in a very specific environment, which is why it's a little strange. But yeah, we're going to hook up the bottom. Yeah, it's very low ceiling. Gonna attach the top. So anyway, now what I'm gonna do is, here's the hook vest. I'm gonna bring this down and then I'm gonna attach it to the ring. I also love this hook vest because there's a rubberized grip on the ring, which kind of protects your equipment from being scratched or scuffed. Now, since the V-mount is on this side, when I hook this up to the ring, sometimes I actually offset where I put this device. So if I pick it up right now, you'll see that it's heavy on this side. So if I pick this up, if I move this, say, further to this side, when I pick it up, it's now heavy on this side. So let me just, I like to get it balanced because that's also going to help when you're holding this all day. So now it's pretty much balanced. So I'll tighten this and then I'll literally pick this up, and I am very low to the ceiling, but I'll bring this down, and as you can see, all the weight is taken off of my arms and it's now in my torso. And I can do weddings all day like this for hours and I don't get tired. I'll get a little tired, but nowhere near as tired as if I had this handheld with my arms. But you can see it's now on me. I can turn. I like doing my handheld footage. And now this is literally stabilized handheld footage without breaking your back. And if I want to like do side stuff, I can like hold it like this. Sometimes I'll do side stuff where I'm walking like that, or I'll walk forward. I can go in. I can even do low angles if I want. It's a very versatile setup in my opinion. It's very elaborate and honestly expensive based on everything that I'm using here. But I really like this setup and I think this could benefit a lot of filmmakers who use either an FX6 or any other camera. And if they don't have access to audio, they can still generate timecode. Granted, I do have external audio sources to match up with my timecode. So you'll need obviously audio, external audio to match this up. But this is just peace of mind. I've done weddings like this where I have timecode to a lavalier or an external audio source. And I'm just recording visuals with this camera that also generates timecode. So when I go into post-production through either Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, whatever, the timecode syncs up and it's just peace of mind. And I don't have to worry about freaking out that I don't have audio from my camera because there's no built-in audio to this camera when you take the top handle off. But anyway, this is my setup that I use for weddings. I love it. It's great. I highly recommend it. I might make another video where I'm more in depth on all these components. If you want to see that, let me know in the comments below. My name is James. My company is JKP Rising. I do weddings, music videos, other types of film videos. I also do editing remotely. If you wish to hire me through any project, you can look at my website in the description below. Contact me. Let's get together. But other than that, if you guys have any questions or any videos you'd like to see in the future regarding this type of equipment, please let me know. I hope this video was informative. Please leave your thoughts and comments below. Any questions, I'll gladly answer. Everything I've used in this video is going to be linked in the description if you want to purchase it for yourself. I'm not sponsored by any of these companies, any of these product companies. I'm just a filmmaker who bought a lot of stuff and I'm just trying to make it work. So thank you so much for watching. After you're done, I obviously just unzip this, take this off, and it's that simple. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.